We have the full leak specifications for the Sony a7R V. Details coming up, but first I encourage you to subscribe and choose all notifications so you're kept informed on the latest camera gear news and rumors. Thanks to Photo Rumors, we have the full leak specifications for the Sony a7R V. They are machine translated, which does make some specifications a little bit hard to determine exactly what is being said. First example is the 61 megapixel full frame sensor. I do believe it's BSI and stacked, but that doesn't get translated rather well. One thing it does say though is that it's going to be twice the speed in terms of the decode as the a7R4. And the optical low pass filter, well, it's supposed to be filterless. And again, I'm not sure if that's an issue with the machine translation or not. Most of the specifications come across quite well and translate well, but some of them, well, we might have to clarify in a future video coming up tomorrow. No surprises that it's going to have a new Bionz XR processor, although it's supposed to have a completely new architecture improving performance. What does that mean? Well, it doesn't really say, but new Bionz XR processor is a good thing with a new architecture. I certainly hope that's a good thing. It's going to have high resolution, high sensitivity, low noise performance with wide dynamic range. Uncompressed or lossless compressed RAW with a maximum of 10 frames per second. And now for the autofocus system. It's going to have 759 phase detect autofocus points that will cover about 92% of the image sensor. 425 contrast detect autofocus points. And as far as human, animal, eye, bird detection, yep, it's going to have that. And you're actually going to be able to prioritize between left and right. So human eye detection, animal eye detection, bird detection, pet detection, and prioritization of left or right eye. That's really, really good news. So no surprises here because Sony does it really good with their autofocus system. They're right up there with Canon, and Nikon's improved their autofocus system quite a bit with the Nikon Z9 as well. And now for the leaked video specifications of the Sony a7R V. And this is looking to be a very, very impressive camera video-wise. First of all, let's break down a couple of the modes. It is 10-bit 422, and we do get a choice between full sensor readout and a Super 35. And we also get a choice between, you ready for this? Long op or IPB and all eye. So that being considered, now let's look at the frame rates and resolutions. We get 9.6K oversampled 8K video, which is pretty impressive. All the basic frame rates of 24, 25, and 30 frames per second. And in 4K, it's oversampled, I would assume, full sensor at 9.6K oversampled 4K at 24, 25, and 30 frames per second, 50 and 60 frames per second, as well as 100 and 120 frames per second for slow motion. Pretty impressive, right? 10-bit 422, 9.6K oversampled 8K, 4K. It's just looking to be truly impressive what this camera can do. It's got zebras with red, white, yellow, and blue outlines. It's got a focus breathing compensation, which is really good. It's got S-Cinetone, it's got log, it's got all that wonderful stuff that you'd expect to have in a Sony camera. And as far as the skin tones go, Sony has called this out saying that it's got beautiful skin effect that brightens and cleans the skin even during video recording and live streaming. I like that. It's going to clean my skin so I don't even have to wash my face or shower before I shoot with a Sony. That's really cool. I don't think that's exactly what it means. I think what they're doing is borrowing that technology. Well, I wouldn't say borrowing. They're using that same technology that Apple does with their FaceTime. And if you watch the review of the Studio Mac or the Mac Studio display, apparently in that device, they kind of overdid it and people just don't look natural and real. So that is one of the downsides of doing this. If they've done it right, it can really improve things if we've got blemishes. And let me tell you, I'm shooting with a Canon EOS R5, and sometimes this camera is just, well, it faithfully reproduces what it sees. And sometimes I go back into post and I'm going like, oh, that doesn't look good. My face is too blotchy and red. And so this feature that Sony's got in the a7R V, I'm really curious to see how it functions. But Sony's had a lot of good luck in the past with features that help improve things, such as not only with the autofocus system does it do a good job of detecting focus and pulling focus, but it does a good job of controlling the exposure. So if you're shooting a blog or a vlog or whatever it is you're doing and you go from an area that's shaded to very, very bright, it does a pretty good job of compensating for the exposure. So hopefully the skin effects are just as good. No surprises that it's going to have a 9.44 million dot EVF, and the LCD, it's not going to have that 1.44 million dot. Thankfully, it's going to have the newer 2.36 million dot LCD, and it's going to be a tiltable, not a fully articulating flip screen. So it's a tiltable screen. We don't know how many axes it's going to tilt out, but it's going to have a tilt screen. So there we go. All right, let's talk about heat dissipation. We've been hearing a lot of things about cameras overheating. Sony cameras overheated, then the Canon EOS R5 came out and it overheated. The Fuji X-T3 overheated. Some are saying that the Sony Alpha 1 is overheating after about a year of use. It's not uncommon that cameras, these stills hybrid cameras, will overheat depending on the temperature and how long you're shooting for. Well, the Sony a7R V has a much better thermal architecture. It can shoot for a whole lot longer, and according to the full specifications here, it's got 5 times better heat dissipation. Now, I don't know what that means. So before, I think the Sony Alpha 1, for example, could shoot 8K or 4K for about an hour before overheating in some modes. So does that mean you can go 5 hours now? I don't really know. This sounds a bit more like marketing speak than it does a technical specification. But either way, the fact that they spent some time on the thermals to get 5 times better cooling, and that just sounds to me like they've done a much better job of the thermal architecture. Maybe they put in heat pipes. Maybe they've just designed the whole system so that way it better pulls the heat from the processor and the sensor all the way to the outer edge of the magnesium alloy to just cool this thing down. And one thing we saw with the Canon EOS R5, while it can overheat pretty quickly in 8K, 4K 60, 4K 120, if you just put a simple copper metal pad in there and attach it to the magnesium body, you could basically shoot unlimited 8K at room temperature without the camera overheating. You still had that 30-minute record limit, but it worked wonders on the the Canon EOS R5. So I really do hope that the thermal architecture here is much improved. I have been hearing that some owners of the Alpha 1, as it gets to about a year or just over a year, they're starting to suffer from thermal issues when it comes to the Alpha 1. They're not being able to record as long. And a friend of mine who has a channel and he shoots primarily with the Alpha 1, he has been having some issues. And believe it or not, he's actually switched to the Sony a7R for a lot of his shooting because of it, because it will just automatically turn off. So we don't know if it's a bug. We don't know if it's what's causing it. He's working through support with Sony, but his issue happened he reported it to Sony just 5 days after the warranty ran out. So hopefully they're helping him out. The Sony a7R V has better dust and water resistance. No idea what that means. They didn't give us an IP rating, and I wish cameras would just adopt the industry standard of IP, whatever it is. One number represents dust resistance or dust ingress, and the other number represents liquid ingress. So for example, if you can drop your iPhone in water for about half an hour, I think that's IP68, for example. I really wish cameras would do this. But I do want to talk a little bit about dust protection. And the biggest problem we have with our Sony cameras is when you remove that lens, that's when the dust just gets sucked onto that sensor because it doesn't have any blinds to protect it when you turn it off, like the Canon EOS R5. And I got to tell you, I've been shooting for almost 2 years now, shot over 600 videos. I'm constantly changing lenses, and I don't have a single bit of debris on my sensor. Pretty impressive. And I change outside. I don't just change inside where we got normal conditions. Well, apparently they got a protection system. And again, the translation doesn't really tell us too much. But I think what that sensor protection system against dust is, they've basically put blades in there to protect it. So as soon as you turn it off, they'll automatically close, which is a wonderful thing. And I'm sure there's a manual switch off for that. So if you do want to clean it manually, then you can leave them open. So really good news there as well. So that covers off a bulk of the specifications. We do have a few more left. It does support Bluetooth 2.4, 5.0. It supports Wi-Fi, all the regular ones, AC, NC, Nancy, whatever they're called, both 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. What else has it got here? Oh yes, USB 3.2 Type-C, dual CF Express card slots, Type A, and of course it works with SD card slots as well. And it's got, the only real negative thing about this camera, and I know you're gonna hate it too, micro HDMI. And please don't defend it. I've been shooting with a micro HDMI on the R5 for 2 years now. I hate it, I absolutely hate it. You do need to use some sort of cable stay management to just protect the camera. And it's one of the leading causes of people sending their cameras in for repair. Well, people that use that cable anyhow. So really sad there that it's got that. Anything else that I've left out? Okay, so USB, they do have a PD support, USB PD. We talked about the different modes. So yes, we did talk about S-Cinetone. I failed to mention though, S-Log2, S-Log3, no surprises there. It's got 2 HLG modes for Rec 709 and Rec 2020. The 9.44 million dot viewfinder, I forgot to mention that it's OLED. What else here? Anything else that I've left out? It supports H.265 as well. It doesn't say what modes. I really like how Fuji does this. Basically, you've got a choice between H.264 and H.265. and it's selectable regardless of what frame mode you're in or resolution. But I'm really impressed with the specifications here. It is a 61 megapixel sensor, and some people were really hoping that this would be pushed up to 100 megapixels, and some of the rumors indicated as such. But I don't think that this is something that we really necessarily need. I know there's a small market that really wants to see 100 megapixels, that want a high megapixel camera. But I think for a lot of us, even myself, I find 45 megapixels to be more than enough. And while, yes, I'm not a photographer first and foremost, 61 megapixels is a lot of data. And what matters more is that we get more high precision, better color representation, less noise, more dynamic range than just increasing the megapixels. So Sony claims to have done this in the specifications. Let's just hope that pans out. So that 61 megapixel file that we get actually provides us with more detail. Really, really good news to have that. New image processor, the video resolutions, full sensor readout, Super 35, 9.6K oversampled 8K and 4K, 120 frames per second. I mean, this to me seems like a winner, but what's surprising to me about this is it pretty much seems to kill the Sony Alpha 1. These are, well, they're better on paper than the Sony Alpha 1. What does it offer? The Sony Alpha 1, 8.6K oversampled 8K. Again, these are specifications, and while they're pretty detailed as leak specifications, we really have to wait and see how they actually look in the reviews, because specifications by themselves don't mean a whole lot. How does it rate up against the Sony Alpha 1, which came out about a year ago? This is really interesting. Again, these are coming from photo rumors. They are claimed as leak specifications that have been machine translated. And if we're getting this detail, these leak specifications now, I'd expect an announcement is almost imminent. I don't expect so in the next couple of weeks because we've got several announcements coming. A whole bunch of announcements at the Fujifilm X Summit on May the 31st with the Fuji X-H2S. Very much anticipated camera, 26 megapixels, 6K recording. And of course, we've got the Canon EOS R10 and R7, which are supposed to be announced on the 24th, which is coming out, I think that's Tuesday next week. So we've got that. So if Sony's going to do the announcement of the a7R 5, I would expect it to be in sometime in June. It could go July. We don't have any dates. We don't have any price. Let me just see if things have been updated since I started recording, because that was about an hour ago. And let's see if we have any updates on, yeah, and the formal name of the camera is ILCE7RM5. Pricing, I don't see pricing. There's no pricing. And we don't have any dates either. Don't have any dates, no pricing. So it's funny, we've got so many details here, but the one thing we don't have is the thing you really want to know too is when is it going to be available and for how much. As soon as I know the leak date and the price, as well as the full proper English translation of the full specifications, I'll be putting out a new video. So if you want to know the latest news and rumors about the Sony a7R 5 or even the Canon EOS R10, R7, or the upcoming Fuji X-H2S, go ahead and subscribe and choose all notifications. So that way, as soon as I publish a video, you'll get a notification so you'll be up to date on the latest camera news and rumors. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.